Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. It's time to kick Spooky Guitar Month off with this abomination of a monster created by the Gibson Mod Collection guys. It was a dark, stormy day at the Mod Collection, and one new employee that was a little bit strange decided to take the necks of guitars and blend them together. They birthed a 70s purple V with a Les Paul headstock, a weird DC with no controls, and something that had a little bit of 70s flair to it. Let's see which beast I captured. I got the one. That's a little bit strange. Alright, so I decided to go with the Marauder influenced one here, guys. What a strange beast that they created. So, in case you missed that last episode, this is a really weird Les Paul special that has a strange Flying V headstock. However, it's not a regular Flying V headstock. It's like abnormally wide. I don't think Gibson has ever used this style before, and we get the old Gibson logo. So, I really think the guys who were creating this one wanted to recreate something that was known as the Gibson Marauder. That was a very shortly lived model from like the mid-70s to the very early 80s. So naturally, I had to scoop this thing up to see what was going on here because our pickups are different. We've got a neck humbucker, but yet a Telecaster style bridge pickup, kind of like what we saw in the TelePaul in this episode. But then 2 of your controls are on a pick guard, 2 are within the body. I mean, you still have the back route, so it's technically a back routed instrument rather than top routed. I'm betting when we take this off, we're not going to see any routes, but who knows? Maybe there's like spooky, scary skeletons in this guitar or something. How did they do this? Did they just throw a brand new neck on it and just call it a masterpiece? Or did they do something else? However, now that I have it in person, I can definitely tell exactly what this is and how they pulled it off. But first impressions, it's actually quite nice. The satin finish that they called Amarena Cherry. However, on the box, they just called it Bing Cherry. So I'm going to call it Bing Cherry because it's easier for me to say. But it's one of those nice high quality satin finishes. It's not one of the really cheap feeling ones, so that's nice. And usually I like the gloss on the headstock, but this actually turned out okay for a Frankenpaul. The neck's pretty chunky on it too. I would say something like a 50s Les Paul standard, something very similar to that. But as far as case candy goes, it's nice we did get a hard shell case. We've got the normal warranty information here, as well as a Gibson strap, our little care packet. However, it doesn't feel like we got the multi-tool in here. And then this is what we really need to talk about, our COA with the serial number of DS0003. So I'm hypothesizing DS stands for demo shop, and whenever a guitar doesn't naturally have a serial number, they just brand it as this. So this is the third super crazy guitar of their series. So let's go ahead and throw this thing on the workbench to see if we can learn a little bit more about its scary history. Inside the modern-day Marauder, there's lots of secrets, and thankfully I was able to discover all of them. So I do my normal thing first, take out all the screws and try to remove the pickguard, and it wouldn't budge. It took me a long time to figure out, oh, it's actually the toggle switch and the knobs that were securing it. They didn't even have to put these screws in here, but they just decided to anyways. So what shows up when we remove this? The reason why it's probably a factory second. There's a pretty nasty ding/gouge on the guitar. So that's likely what put this on the chopping block at the first place, but you can see some of these holes do not line up with the current pickguard, so you can tell there was definitely something else on this at one point in time. So yes, this is officially a back-routed instrument. The pickguard was just added over top later on. But check out the neck pickup cavity. It's routed for a humbucker, and look what we have right here. It's the original serial number, 230610226. So even though it got a new serial number assigned to it, they didn't lose the original one. They could have put it back on there if they wanted to. Then it looks like the original color code might be right there, although I can't quite make out what it said. But I was impressed by this. The original humbucker ring screws were actually professionally filled in. Even though nobody's ever going to see that, they did it anyway. But the neck pickup is a 490R. But now what's going on with our bridge pickup here? Just like we saw on that Telecaster custom, they had to take a little Swiss cheese bite out of the side right there. But oddly enough, the 4 holes that you would likely eventually see if you're ever going to work on this guitar at all, they didn't fill. So I guess you could swap back to a regular humbucker, and maybe that's why they did it that way. If you didn't like this whole Tele setup, you could easily just put another pickup ringed humbucker in here. You just have a couple of screw holes showing on the outside. I suppose you'd also have to be okay with seeing like a small sliver of that
that if you had a regular pickup ring. But this actually has the original code in it that tells us what model it started life as. Remember, this was billed as a Les Paul Special, but it's not. It's Les Paul Special Tribute Humbucker. So yeah, this is one of those $1,000 guitars that they just modified up. Kind of sad. I was hoping it was a regular special because that's kind of what they advertised it at. So I wish they would get better at telling you what the exact model is. But as soon as I took this out of the case, I knew it was one of those because of the neck material being maple. But we'll take a look at that here in a second. But this time we have the STL2 Seymour Duncan Bridge Telecaster pickup. But nothing too crazy under here. Here you go. Proof that you don't actually need the screws. I really wish they just would have left it like that, because that would have made this thing even freakier, because I was thinking, did they glue that down? Those crazy guys, I wouldn't put it past them, but no. It's just that stuff actually secures it well enough. But within the circuit, the bridge pickup reads 16.35 k ohms, the neck position is 7.8-ish, and then the middle for fun is 5.28. However, I didn't know this until I looked in the backside of this guitar. They actually put a push-pull pot in here, so your middle for fun then is 3.18, but it's splitting your neck pickup most likely, so 3.96-ish. So you could technically get the single telly setup, or you can fatten it up a little bit, but this doesn't have any like coil tapping or anything to it. It's only one that has the push-pull pot. The rest is just regular volume and tone controls for each pickup. The wrap tail is kind of interesting. I don't think I've seen one of these on a Gibson before. It's got the lightning bar intonation strike, but it's much more pronounced than normal. It really kind of reminds me more so of a PRS styled one, but that's the only marking I see on this. Let me know if you recognize this. But other than that, we can only appreciate the satin finished body here. It wouldn't surprise me if this started life as one of the cherry ones and all they did was spray the black edge to give it this Bing cherry burst. But I'd say that whole cherry burst looks pretty cool. But now let's move on to our neck. So we've got 22 medium jumbo frets. You've got your regular dot inlays. I mean, all this looks just like that Les Paul Special Tribute. 24 3/4 inch scale length, 12-inch fretboard radius with a nut that measures 0.164. Wow, that's kind of skinny for a Gibson. I did notice it really looks like they put a new nut on here. It kind of looks tall. But by the 12th, that increases to 2.06. Then let's see how chunky this neck is. 0.89 at the first fret, and pretty much an even 1 by the 12th. It feels more rounded than that. I'm curious if they reshaped the neck when they did all this. Here's what that looks like at the 1st and 12th fret. Here's a nice close-up look on that old-style Gibson logo. That's what tells me they knew that they were creating a new Gibson USA Marauder when they did this. But at the same time, they just really kind of made it look like one of the grabber headstocks. You know, the base, they have that really oblong-shaped one, so I would say that's probably closest to there. But then they just put a pure black truss rod cover on it. Now it's time to move on to that backside. So you can see your toggle switch cavity here and how they did the whole stain on the back to get your nice burst flavor. And then here we go with the control cavity. I was really shocked to see this style of push-pull pot because Gibson stopped using that around like the 2013s when they switched to the more metal encased version. So you'll find this on like some of the really cool signature guitars of the mid 2010s. But other than that, looks like pretty basic wiring here. Gibson branded pots, definitely been retouched up from something else. Got your output jack on the side, the large strap buttons that Gibson uses. But now it's time to talk about the neck. So the more expensive Les Paul Special reissue would have a mahogany neck, so that's how I knew this was a tribute even before looking in there. But here's the big question. Is this a brand new neck put on one of those bodies? I don't think it is. My suspicions of there being a scarf joint for the new headstock were correct. You can see the line right here, but they hit it so well. It just follows the headstock up right here. So it's almost like they scarfed the new headstock on the side of the old neck even over here. Because you can see a wing line right here and on the other side where it was normally joined. However, I don't actually see a wing line on the back for the rest of the headstock. So that might really just be left over from the old headstock, and that's why this looks so strange, is because you don't see the wings. But now that I think about it, I'm actually glad this was one of the Les Paul Special tributes, because the original Marauders had maple necks, so otherwise that would have been a missed spec. Now, Marauder bodies, they can vary from maple to mahogany to alder. I mean, you can find a whole bunch of woods. It's basically whatever Gibson could get their hands on. But this is not a bolt-on neck construction. However, the only other question is, what wood is the top of the headstock made out of? It looks similar to the maple that you find on the neck, but not exactly. It wouldn't surprise me if it was something else. So that tells me, look out for the demo shop. I think they might do some more weird headstocks on stuff if they can do that. Which tells me this one probably had some sort of a headstock repair, and since last time they posted one of those, people are like, why is Gibson posting them? So now they're doing some Frankenstein stuff, and I'm all for it. So does that mean the cool Flying V over here was also a scarf jointed headstock? I mean, that's a solid finish. We're never going to be able to know for sure. Maybe they just did it on this one because the original Marauders were scarf jointed, but they were normally like right here. So you could also just call it a cool throwback, but this is Demo Shop 0003 for its official serial number with Gibson Kluson Deluxe tuners. All said and done, this monster weighs 7 pounds, 2 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how it sounds. Alright, so you get some pretty interesting tones out of this. I'm not gonna say I really dig this bridge pickup at all. Like, the Tele Custom, I was all over that bridge pickup, but this particular one, it just doesn't sound quite as good. Maybe throw a different Tele bridge pickup in there, or maybe that's just your tastes, and mine might differ a little bit. But here's what that sounds like again. I honestly just prefer the neck pickup on this one. And sadly, I prefer the neck pickup split over the real single coil. I mean, listen to this stuff. That's a really thick, almost humbucker-esque sounding single coil. But sometimes the game changes once you throw a little bit of distortion on. Once again, I think that neck pickup just steals the show. Now that we know all about the Mod Shop's monster, what are my final thoughts on this thing? I love that it exists, but honestly, I wasn't really feeling this one. These pickups do not blend well together, in my opinion. This is not what I want when I want a single coil tele pickup. But the neck pickup was pretty nice. I mean, maybe this would go better for a different style of guitar player, but for me, kind of a bust, but I'm glad it exists. And I'm very happy that they decided to play with some headstocks, because this was an interesting start to our Halloween celebration where I tried to review, either signature guitars like playing Dress Up, or just weird monstrosities like this. So don't forget to subscribe and watch every day this month to see some interesting reviews and demos. And if you're interested in being the next owner of this particular monster, you can find it on my website, troglysguitarshow.com. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.